So that's it for the season. Leicester and Leeds and Southampton face a drop. Everton survive. Aston Villa secure European football. It's nice that there was jeopardy, for the end of the season, but I don't know how I feel about it. Let's talk about it. So yeah, let's just finish off these games. Villa versus Brighton. Villa wanted to attack. Unai Emery wanted to attack, and he did that. They had plenty of chances, and they set up very well tactically against Brighton, looking to pounce on them whenever they were in transition, and I think that really helped them get the goals. And we saw towards the end of the game that they had a lot of chances. Like Jacob Ramsey could have done more for a shot. I mean, he missed quite a big one, and they nullified Brighton, and they held a high line. Undav with a great goal for them to get back into it, but it just wasn't enough. And Villa have secured Conference League football, and knowing Unai Emery, and I think Villa's board is going to back him, they could go far. And going by the competition, I think they'll probably be one of the stronger sides, so we'll have to find out how they get on there. Everton versus Bournemouth. Credit to Sean Dyche, he set them up to attack, and while Bournemouth played a few rotated players, they did look like they were struggling. They clearly looked like they didn't really have much to play for. Well, not until they conceded. I mean, Mark Travers had a couple of great saves, subbing in for Neto, but Decore with an unbelievable strike to secure the win ultimately, but it wasn't by the interventions of the likes of Cody Tarkowski and Jordan Pickford with big saves and big blocks. And just the atmosphere in Goodison Park was elated, and I'm expecting myself and a friend are going to go over to Goodison Park next season, because it'll be the final time before they move to Bramley-Moore Dock. But if that's the atmosphere, I'm really looking forward to it. Credit to Bournemouth, who did try to fight back, but wasn't enough, and Everton stay up. Leeds versus Tottenham. It's sad, because I did grow an affinity to Leeds ever since I watched the the Coming Home documentary on Amazon with Leeds, and I just fell in love with the club. They're not my team, but you've just grown affinity to them. And unfortunately, I can just see their squad being decimated. A few players leaving, like the likes of McKennie, who was on loan, and I could see the likes of Wilfred Nonto, Rodrigo, Mark Roca, Robin Koch. They have a lot of talented players, but wasn't enough. Credit to Tottenham, they played well. They didn't allow Leeds to have many chances, and they exploited their kind of head rush that they had of the day. Came with 2 goals to reach his target over 30, and Lucas Moura, who was villain not too long ago for conceding the winner against Liverpool, he goes out as a bit of a cult hero at the club, and I'm happy for him in that case. Man City had a bit of a stumbling block here with Brentford. They did rotate, but they didn't look that dangerous. And I did think that Brentford would get a draw from this, but I wasn't expecting them to win it. But could this be a little kind of spanner in the works in terms of momentum? I mean, the players who would typically play didn't, but we don't know what will happen. But credit to Brentford, and going off what they're going to be needing to plan for next season with Ivan Toney out until January, they need to secure a striker, and I think they'll be looking at the relegated clubs. I could see them potentially going for Ward-Prowse to be a bit of a set-piece merchant, and that would be scouring across Europe and knowing their owners still find an untapped gem for a good price, and I could see them doing really well. So we'll have to see what happens there. United versus Fulham was a bit crazy, to say the least. Fred playing in his ideal position as kind of more of an advanced number 8, similar to what Xhaka did, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, one pass was just bounced. It bounced around and fell to Sancho. The other one, great reverse pass through the defensive line to Bruno Fernandes. But they were under the cosh at Old Trafford. Fulham scored first, and then De Gea with brilliant penalty save. I love his reaction just to stare at his contract's up in the summer if United don't activate his 1-year extension. But to see him make the save, a brilliant save, it wasn't easy. It wasn't a bad penalty per se, but to get the ball and when it went out for a corner, to get it and pumped it into the crowd and just stared at them. He clearly knows that people have given him stick, and I think credit to him. He deserves to have that applauded for him, and we'll see what happens with him over the summer. But that's great for United to secure third, and you can say they've had a decent season. They still have an FA Cup to contend with, but so far so good. Chelsea versus Newcastle, not much to go by. Just both teams Chelsea didn't really have many great chances. Newcastle the same, but played a few players in rotation, and I'm expecting to see a huge clear out from Chelsea. Likes of Pulisic, potentially Loftus-Cheek, Kovacic. They just need to kind of recoup a bit of money for this summer if they want to comply with FFP. Luckily they're not in Europe, so they don't really have to worry about it too much. Next is Leicester and West Ham, and despite Leicester's best efforts, it wasn't enough for them to survive, and I think they're out of Southampton, Leeds and themselves. I think they're in the worst position. COVID-19 had a huge impact on them financially. Their owner runs a tourist company, and because of the lack of funds that generated over a year and a half, they weren't able to spend, and as a result they weren't able to reinforce, and I still wasn't expecting them to be relegated. I expected them to be lower mid-table, but unfortunately they're going down, and I say the likes of Madison, Castagne, maybe even like a few more of their players, like Harvey Barnes, and even Iverson, they could potentially be poached. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with them. West Ham as well probably would have preferred to have gotten a result, but they did start fighting back towards the end of the game. But again, credit to Leicester for getting the win, but it just wasn't enough. Arsenal versus Wolves. Xhaka getting 2 goals early on, and they were just absolutely romped Wolves. Looks like Lopetegui might be considering his future after he released in the press conference that they're not going to be able to spend a lot of money due to transfer or FFP issues, and he might leave because of that, and I don't blame him. I say being promised that you have free reign on players, but then to be told you need to almost practically sell before you can buy. They have a lot of valuable assets, but they're not going to get the transfer values that they probably would want, and to replace those players you're going to need to spend even more. So what happens with Wolves is going to be very interesting. Arsenal on the other hand, seeing Granit Xhaka potentially play his last game with Bayer Leverkusen, set to sign him for about £15 million. I mean, talk about a redemption story, going from being subbed off and telling the Arsenal supporters to F off, to go from there to being integral to Arteta's system, especially this season as an advanced number 8. I think he has redeemed himself, and if he decides to come back to Arsenal in any capacity, whether as a guest, coach, I say be welcome with open arms, and I'm glad that his story has a happy ending. Southampton versus Liverpool was an absolutely crazy. I was about to swear. But Liverpool went 2-0 up courtesy of Lavia, probably potentially passing the ball to one of his future teammates, who knows. But they secured another goal, but Southampton fought back. Kiva Kelleher didn't paint himself in a lot of glory, considering that he could potentially be off in the summer. I'd see he as one of Liverpool's most saleable assets. You know, he didn't really do well, but credit to Liverpool for fighting back, and credit to Southampton for just continuing to fight. I'd say a few of those players are definitely going to be poached. Like I said, Lavia, Ward-Prowse, Sulemana. Hopefully, you know, probably he's trying to do what Darwin Núñez did with Liverpool and try to convince them to sign him. But regardless, you know, Southampton, I think they're in a good spot to go back up. They'll lose a few young players, but they have a lot of younger players coming through who a season in a championship will definitely do well with. And lastly, Palace versus Nottingham Forest. Both teams were just happy out, weren't they? Played, you know, decent football, and not really much to say about it. So yeah, that's it. Manchester City are champions. Arsenal, Newcastle, Man United, Villa and Brighton securing Europe. Leicester, Leeds, Southampton going down. It's been a great Premier League season, and I hope you enjoyed these previews and reviews. I've enjoyed doing them. It's definitely kept me in touch with all the different clubs. And yeah, during this next few weeks, I'll be doing my, you know, reviews, potentially previews for the different finals, and kind of my take on the season and if there's any potential stories popping up. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, give it a like, subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, take care.